So I'm here with Mike. Mike, nice to meet you. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
And you're the head of EdTech Asia.
Mm-hmm.
You're the founder of EdTech Asia?
That is correct, yes.
Oh, amazing. How many years ago did you found it?
2013.
2013. Wow. And what made you to found EdTech Asia?
That's a good question. So originally I was working in international development for different UN agencies. And increasingly, a lot of the work I was doing around education and innovation was siloed in specific countries. So I kind of saw the need to bridge some of the different countries, bridge some of the innovative ideas that were happening at the country level to a more regional platform. So that was the original impetus to start EdTech Asia. It's evolved a bit since then, but yeah, that's how we started.
Amazing. And what are your main goals?
What are the main goals? Basically, initially were to create a more cohesive and collaborative education innovation platform across the region. That's still one of our main goals. But since as the ecosystem has evolved quite a bit in the last 6-7 years, we've taken on other roles as well. More on the business side, but always with an interest and passion for facilitating the learning side as well.
So you work in the whole ecosystem, like with investors at the companies and school administrators or?
Not so much school administrators, but organizations that own schools or ministries that are responsible for kind of overseeing, education on the national level. We have worked with in the past. But pretty much we're focused on the innovation and business side of EdTech. Very, very similar to what Yaki has done here with EdTech Israel. We're like an Asia counterpart to that.
Okay. And what do you see are the main challenges or mission that the EdTech Asia is confronted with?
Confronted
with. Not confronted, it's a strong word, but faces with or try to reach, to achieve.
Yeah. Well, I think, as I kind of have alluded to before, just a leveling of the playing field, right? So Asia is very diverse.
Because there's a gaps.
There's huge gaps, yeah. Okay. So, for example, if you look at countries like Cambodia, for example, or Myanmar. Cambodia, 15 million people. Myanmar, roughly around 50 million people. From an investment perspective, or even a EdTech solution provider perspective, it's not so interesting because there's larger markets to enter, right? So if you're an Israeli EdTech company and you want to go to Asia, most people initially will think China. They're thinking as well, if I just get 0.001% of the China market, then I've done well. But what they don't take into account is the competitiveness in China, regulatory policy, environment, etc. There's lots of other things to be aware of, but there's other, I don't want to say neglected markets, but there's markets that are in need of education innovation that aren't as competitive. That have partnerships, or have potential partners within a market that are a lot easier to manage and initially make. So yeah, I mean, basically leveling the playing field a little bit and spreading innovative education solutions, across the whole region. It's roughly 2/3 of the world's population, live in that part of the world. So, yeah.
Can you give us an example for startups that you're passionate about it today? They're in your focus?
Oh, that's a really good question. I'm a former science teacher myself.
Okay.
Many years ago. So I think
high school?
I did teach high school. I taught high school biology for a while in the international school circuit and in inner city schools in Los Angeles. So I'm a bit, I guess, privy to kind of STEAM education, STEM and STEAM education. I think there's a lot of smaller companies that have some interesting solutions, for example, that make it easy for maybe students in schools that don't have a lot of resources to do science experiments, to do chemistry experiments, to do virtual experiments, things like that. robotics, coding, education. So anything kind of in that STEAM realm, I think there's a lot of solution providers that can really, impact schools, teachers, students in places that normally they haven't had access to those kind of materials in the past.
So I understand you've been. It's not your first time in Israel.
No, it
right?
is not.
And how do you see the Israeli community, EdTech community, and ecosystem? What do you think that is, very unique here that you see from your point of view?
Oh, okay. Uniqueness. Obviously, the innovation of the high concentration of high quality innovation that comes out of such a small country. That's definitely unique, but that's not unique to education as well. I think that's across the board with tech.
Yeah.
So that's your strength as a country. Obviously, alluding to startup nation and mandatory military service and all these things that kind of create a perfect recipe for you guys doing well in that space. And I think also the support, camaraderie amongst the companies here and those seeking to help others, reach out beyond Israel. It's from day one, if you have a company here, you're not just focused on the Israeli market, you're focused globally. So I see a lot of companies helping and assisting each other out kind of in that realm.
So my last question is, as I told you before, most of our listeners are educators or startups, EdTech. Some of them are in early stage. Do you have any recommendation for them for looking at the global market? What do you think they need to do actively?
Oh, it's a loaded question a little bit. Early stage Israeli companies for the global market. I think do your research.
Okay.
Do more market research than you think you might need to do.
I see it in your face that you're talking from experience.
Well, I see a lot of overlap.
Okay.
I've run into a lot of companies that they have a particular solution and they're unaware that there's another solution provider that's very similar to them. I think that's one of the advantages in my role is just kind of maybe not having a super deep understanding of each and every individual company, but I do know a lot of the companies that are out there and looking to enter different markets. So just do some market research and see who is looking to enter different markets and how you differentiate your product or solution from them. That's probably the biggest piece of advice.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Mike.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
All right.